completing all achievements in a single run. That's what we had in mind when we thought of a one-run challenge in Risk of Rain 2. While obviously some achievements are impossible in a single run, we wondered just how close we could possibly get to this goal. But this seemingly simple goal put us through over a month of research, testing, and seemingly endless suffering. The first thing I did was look up what other people did on YouTube, and oh look at that, a Woolie video called the Full One Run Challenge. And I look at it and I see that it's 11 different runs between parts 1 and 2, which doesn't really make sense to me for a one run challenge. Apparently, he meant one run on each available survivor, which is actually a really cool challenge, but you wouldn't be able to tell that from the title. Personally, I feel like it's no longer a one run challenge if it's actually an 11 run challenge. And he did kinda take my video title, so I'm gonna call it the actual one run challenge and hope that people get the difference and it won't get lost to the YouTube algorithm. Like, share, and subscribe, by the way. I put a lot of work into this one. I assume that if you're here you know how Risk of Rain 2 works, but if you don't, there are 5 different stages that can be repeated endlessly. And the map for each stage is chosen randomly depending on what stage you are. For example, there are a few options for stage 5 maps that you'll see repeating every 5 stages. This makes the game theoretically endless, but there's a catch. The difficulty of the game scales with time. So hypothetically, if your achievement hunting in a single run takes over 8 hours, the enemies are truly out for blood. The rules are simple: using a completely fresh save, complete as many of the 121 Steam achievements as you can while only starting a single run. Notice this does not mean the unlockables, but honestly it doesn't really make a difference as most of the unlockables require me to end my run, which I can only do once. But this also means I need both DLC, but I already have that, and you're welcome for my money, Gearbox. And unlike Woolie, I will not be doing a run with each character, so that means I have to pick a character at the beginning of the run and stick with it the entire way through. Normally, this would make a lot of achievements unattainable as they are locked behind these tedious character-specific challenges. And if you can only pick one character, this means we lose access to a lot of achievements. But there is a solution for this, and that solution is the Artifact of Metamorphosis. The Artifact of Metamorphosis is unlocked by putting this artifact code in stage 5, and it will randomly re-roll your character every time you enter the artifact portal. And you can enter it every time you loop. So the idea is, by looping an ungodly amount of times, you can theoretically play as every single survivor. And while items unlocked will only be available when starting my next run, survivors unlocked during my run can randomly be selected using Metamorphosis, which we actually confirmed in testing, so we knew that this was going to be possible. So with this, I went through a spreadsheet of achievements, and with a lot of research and testing, I created a plan to collect as many achievements as possible in a singular run. When checking if the achievements were possible, I didn't really consider the difficulty of completing these, only that they were theoretically possible, which might have been a mistake as a lot of these are not very fun to do in a single run. Using this plan, you can actually get a significant majority of the achievements, but obviously not all of the achievements are possible, and there are quite a few roadblocks that prevent me from getting all of them. First of all, anything that has to do with alternate game modes is off limits. I can't do a prismatic trial, so prismatically aligned is not possible, which is actually the same as Woolie's video. But secondly, while I can access survivors I unlocked during the run, there is no way to play as Mercenary, Multi, Captain, Chef, or Void Fiend from Metamorphosis, which means that all their character challenges are impossible. Mercenary, Captain, and Void Fiend all require me to end my run, so I can choose to unlock one of them at the very end, but I can't choose to play as them. But unlocking Multi and Chef is actually impossible. They both require me to start multiple runs. Lastly, there are a bunch of achievements involving beating the final boss with all survivors, and since the final boss is, well, final, I can only do it once. And that's it, that's literally it. The rest of the achievements I can get in a single run. Technically, this run can be done unmodded, but I do have human activities such as eating and sleeping, so I will be using the proper save mod to save my progress at the start of each stage, which also means I can reload the stage, so if I pick up a wrong lunar item, or something else bad happens, I won't have to restart the entire run. Additionally, this mod also saves me if something breaks horribly and I crash, because Risk of Rain 2 was definitely not intended to support runs this long. I will also have a debug toolkit, but I'll get to why that's needed in a second. When planning this run, I knew I had to do the time-sensitive achievements first, because if I took too long in the run, these achievements would literally become impossible, forcing me to reset. So there are 3 time-sensitive achievements, but 2 of them are not too bad, but one is very difficult. And that one is the Loader Swing By achievement, which requires me to enter the Celestial Portal at stage 8 before 25 in-game minutes have passed. The biggest problem here is Loader is not available at the beginning of the game. I have to beat a specific secret boss at stage 4 to unlock it. But the other time-sensitive achievement requires me to visit a specific stage 3 in under 10 minutes, which means that I have to randomly get that specific stage 3 and stage 4 and the Loader Metamorphosis result. And I have very limited flexibility here, because stage 8 in 25 minutes is actually pretty fast, and it's extra difficult when you have to fight a secret boss too. But there is a solution when we introduce seeded runs. In pretty much every game with some sort of randomness involved, there's a seed which predetermines everything before the run starts. And for this game, the seed is just a big string of numbers. Which means I can use cheats to explore different seeds and check which stages show up, and even check what survivor I get out of the first metamorphosis. If I just copy the seed, I can guarantee what random elements will show up in this run. Risk of Rain 2 doesn't really have the support to read and write seeds, so this is what I'll need the debug toolkit for. Theoretically, this entire run can be done unmodded, but this lets me make sure that the run is at least possible every single time. But now that we know the seed is possible, the run can actually begin. After creating a new profile, I start a run with Commando, and unsurprisingly, this run has to be done in the hardest difficulty, as there are a few achievements associated with this, which you know I can't pass up. Also, my first survivor has to be Commando, because of the Godspeed achievement. This requires me to beat the first stage in under 5 minutes, with Commando specifically, which sucks because choosing Railgunner would make this run 10 times easier, at least at the very beginning. In the first stage, it doesn't really matter which stage I have as long as I go really fast. I also have to pick up this free equipment called the Fuel Array, which is always in the back of my drop pod. The problem with the Fuel Array is that it takes my equipment slot and does absolutely nothing, except it blows me up if I take a hit below half health. Why? Which is something I will have to live with for a while. This sucks, but I needed to unlock a character later, so it's absolutely required. The first stage goes pretty normally otherwise. I grab a few items on the way to the teleporter and hit it as soon as possible. And I make sure to ditch my fuel array immediately once I get enough money for this revolving chest, so I can swap out my equipment. And after repeatedly shooting a rock and hiding from its blinding red stare, I leave the teleporter zone right before it's full charge. I do this to unlock the Glorious Battle achievement, which requires me to charge the teleporter at under 10% health, which is the easiest to do right now. And charging the first teleporter does give me 3 different achievements, which reminds me that not all of these achievements I have to plan for. Like, yeah, sure, I completed a stage, gold star, woohoo! And with the first stage done, I can hit the teleporter and definitely remember to pick up my fuel array before I leave, which I may have forgotten to do in a couple of my test runs. At the second stage, I still have to keep up the pace, grabbing some very important items on the way, and trying my absolute hardest not to get immediately blown up by the bomb strapped to my back. Specifically, the item that carries the first part of the run is spare drone parts. This is a red item that gives me a powerful drone called Colonel Drone Man, and also turns my drone so unethically powerful that the wedding didn't even stand a chance. I also know I always get it from that specific chest because this run is seeded. But finding a seed that happened to have stage 2 drone parts was entirely luck, because I didn't really actually check any items when I was seed hunting. I complete the teleporter, avoiding the Lepton Daisy, which is a healing item, because the Naturopath achievement requires me to avoid all sources of healing until stage 3, which makes the beginning of this run extra fun. But before I leave, I still am able to pick up a few items, including this flamethrower drone, which will pair beautifully with my spare drone parts. But I can't take too long because I have to get to stage 3 immediately to open this chest, which automatically locks after 10 minutes, never to be opened again. But aside from being a required achievement, which I have to do anyway, the chest actually gives me the Not BFG, also known as the Prion Accumulator, which I take to the teleporter to accumulate all over this Clay Dune Strider's Prions, which pretty much blows it up instantly. Completing the stage 3 teleporter unlocks Bandit, which is now available for Metamorphosis. But the fun doesn't stop there, as I run immediately back to get my fuel array and say goodbye to my Prion Accumulator forever. It will be missed. I go back to hit the teleporter, and once I see the Naturopath achievement, I know I'm all in the clear to pick up healing items, which is great because one came free of charge with the teleporter. In stage 4, I make my way down the hill shooting a few eggs and some local wildlife. Once I have enough money to grab a few missile drones and hit the teleporter, with my new beefed up drone friends, the teleporter boss doesn't really stand a chance. And I can shoot the last few eggs to spawn another, even more sinister boss, the Alloy Warship Unit. But aside from having a ton of health and shield, he kinda gets eaten alive by my drones, which unlocks Loader for me. I also managed to not take damage for the entire teleporter event, which was cool because I got the Flawless achievement. This was totally not part of the plan, but hey, I'll take it so I don't have to worry about it later. I got so excited I forgot the Alloy Warship Unit drops a rare item. I forgot the Runic Core. I forgot the fucking red item. When I get to stage 5, I book it directly to the Artifact Reliquary, where I'd normally determine if my run can continue or not, but because of the work I did finding a perfect seed, I know for sure I will get Loader from this first Metamorphosis. Which I did, so thank God. The Artifact Reliquary was crazy boring, but eventually I did kill enough stuff to drop 4 Artifact Keys. And then I just shoved the Artifact Keys directly into the Reliquary, which kills it, I guess, I don't know. Thank God, that took so long. And after this, I have to speed through the next 3 stages. And I hit the green portal because the stages are actually easier in the green portal and much faster as I don't actually have to charge a teleporter. And after the stage 8 teleporter, I immediately go through the Celestial Portal and successfully grab the Loader achievement. Swing by. Also, even though the Celestial Portal is intended to be a place to end your run by obliterating yourself at the obelisk, you can totally just leave and continue if you change your mind. So I did exactly that and went through the portal. Oh yeah, and since I had to go to Siren's Call last stage 4 to kill the Alloy Warship Unit, I haven't had the opportunity to get rid of the stupid fuel array, which I can only do at a different stage 4 called Abyssal Depths, which is not the stage I get on stage 9, so I have to do another loop with this goddamn fuel array. At stage 10, I remembered that there are 3 combat shrines here, so I can get the Warmonger achievement. The combat shrines just spawn a few enemies, but this is actually something I have to do now because this actually killed my last run. Yes, I scrapped a 7-hour run because I found out that shrines of combat no longer work once the difficulty scaling becomes too high. But the enemies out of the shrines of combat aren't particularly difficult, so it's actually a pretty easy achievement if you're lucky. After this, I input the code for the Artifact of Sacrifice, as it's a pretty easy artifact where enemies can drop items, which lets me stay there for a bit to farm up a little bit more strength, and the timer is paused anyway, so it gives me the opportunity to take a little break and get a little stronger. But also, I have to be careful I don't get too strong, so I have to eventually leave and continue my run. I cruise through the next 2 stages and make sure to kill this Nakahuna guy on the way for a free achievement. And I'm definitely enjoying playing Loader instead of Commando, because early game Commando does equivalent damage to a strong gust of wind. And without the drones, I don't think this would be possible. But finally, I managed to reach stage 14 without dying, which finally gives me the opportunity to get rid of this stupid fuel array and lets me unlock Rex, which as a survivor I will need to play through Metamorphosis as soon as possible. But before I do that, I need to go on a little side quest. Instead of taking the artifact reliquary on stage 15 like normal, I instead go through a blue portal by giving a lunar coin to a new altar. This takes me to the Bazaar Between Time, which allows me to do a few things. I can buy lunar items with lunar coins, but I actually can't right now because Commando has an achievement that requires me to avoid lunar items for 20 stages. But what I'm really here for is the Lunar Seer, which trades the lunar coins for the ability to select my next stage from 2 options. And here I'm finally able to select Titanic Plains for my next stage, so I can bully crabs to death. The reason I had to select Titanic Plains is because it's the only stage that naturally spawns hermit crabs and bottomless pits. This is a match made in heaven for the Demons and the Crabs achievement, which requires me to kill 20 hermit crabs by chasing them off a cliff. Usually, there are some tricks to manually push the crabs off the stage without killing them, but I don't have any of those options, so I have to spend the next 20 minutes running at them screaming. The screaming is optional, but I did it anyway. I did, however, have enough foresight to scrap my overpowered drones I picked up early in the run, so I minimized the amount of crabs I accidentally killed. But I really hope no one could hear me because this would definitely put me on a watch list. Everyone kill yourself. Kill yourself. Good work. At some point during the grind, the aspect of McDonald's Sprite dropped, which gives me the powers of the Glacial Elites. It's not super helpful, but has a 1 in 4,000 chance of dropping, so I'm flexing it like a shiny Pokemon. You're doing great. You're doing great. Just keep going. Just keep going. Don't let them scare you. Yes, we're so back. We're so back. We're so back. The run can continue. Anyway, after this fun little war crime, I can finally move on from this stage. It has been longer than 30 minutes. Try the Woods got running now. I got a bunch of achievements after this just by playing the game, which is a nice reminder that not every achievement requires 20 minutes of bullying. Oh, forgot I had to do that. Reaching stage 5 again, I can finally get back into the swing of Metamorphosis, where I can manage to get Rex, which is good because I can do the Rex achievements early. One of which is really easy and I get it pretty much immediately, where I heal 1,000 health at once. Which is easy because Rex heals depending on the damage dealt, which I do a lot of now. After finally escaping the reliquary, I hit the blue portal in the first stage so I can guarantee myself the abandoned aqueduct the next stage. This is for the Rex achievement Dunked, which requires me to shove one of these big teapot looking guys, the clay dune striders, into a very specific hole in this map. But using Rex's utility skill, I can actually get pretty good pushing power, so I just waited around the hole until one spawned close enough so I could boop it in. Dune strider, which honestly didn't take that long. Yes. Poke. Yes! Yes! But up until now, I've been purposefully limiting my powers so I didn't accidentally kill anything I needed to push into a pit. While there is a third Rex achievement, it is much easier once I have more items, so I'm going to do that one later.
I did it.
Also, I thought it was kind of funny that I had to make myself unlucky on purpose to get this achievement.
Yes.
Hey! But for now, I can switch up my character again with Metamorphosis to get Commando. But before that, I should probably talk about how Metamorphosis works, because you might be wondering how I always seem to manage to get the perfect survivor I need. When normally playing the game, Metamorphosis seems like a completely random mechanic. And it totally is when playing on an unseeded run, but it can be predicted when using the same seed every time. Pretty much how it works is that for a seed, there's a big old list of survivors that can show up every time for Metamorphosis. And the survivors are ordered depending on what actual stage you're on. And by actual stage, I mean that you should ignore the stage number in the top right corner and actually start counting, because it's a completely hidden stat. The actual stage count includes any hidden realms visited on the run, that being the Bazaar Between Time, the Artifact Reliquary, pretty much any place that needs a portal to get there and time is stopped. So by adding this to my stage count, I can predict what survivors I get from Metamorphosis, and even plan ahead by taking blue portals to guarantee certain survivors. The list only includes unlocked survivors, and unlocking new survivors changes the entire list. Also, this survivor list was generated by my friend Thomas, who's been helping me a lot in planning this run. But anyway, with my perfect planning techniques and the ability to count, I knew that with the amount of portals I've taken and the survivors I unlocked, I have guaranteed myself Commando. Shit. Am I Bandit? The fuck? I did actually rage quit here. For some reason, Engineer only unlocked after the Stage 31 Metamorphosis, when we planned for Engineer to be unlocked before, so it actually messed up the list. And funnily enough, me rage quitting actually fixed this, because when I reloaded the game using the proper save mod, I was Commando. Which is good because I got Incorruptible, which was one achievement of preventing me from picking up lunar items. And I also got Rolling Thunder from killing an overloading worm in the Artifact Reliquary. So hey, it worked out in the end, and Thomas gets to live another day. While the achievements up until now have been pretty quick, the pace of the run slows down a lot from here, as I get into the late game. At this point in the run, I just have to continue knocking out all these character-specific achievements, as well as doing a few little side quests on the way. And one of those side quests is dying. There are 3 achievements where you have to die. The I Love Dying achievement is only given after dying 20 whole times, and you'd think that this would be impossible, as dying would end your run and force you to restart. And it was! Before the Seekers of the Storm DLC added the new Shrine of Shaping. This shrine gives you +1.
It gave us like +1 is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I just
this is a shit item, but it's
We
funny,
got
so
another,
maybe.
let's go!
Dude,
We got
that's
more!
fucking
Guys, we got
awesome,
more!
dude. We got 1 extra.
But the +1 actually means an extra life, where you can die and get revived, and it still counts toward your death total. You can only do it once per stage, but it's sure a good thing I'm quite literally visiting over 100 stages. The 3 dying achievements themselves aren't particularly difficult, but they're very tedious. But it was kind of funny because every time I saw a Shrine of Shaping, I knew exactly what I must do.
You should yourself now!
Anyway, I forgot to start recording for my 5th death achievement, but I think I got it around this time because it's in my logbook, so I'm adding it to the list. After the stage 36 Artifact Reliquary, I finally get to play as Engineer, which gives me great joy as an Engineer main, but also lets me get quite a few easy achievements in this loop. The first one was given pretty much as soon as I turned into Engineer. The next achievement requires me to go to the Abandoned Aqueduct yet again, and search for these 2 buttons camouflaged in the ground somewhere in the map. Because I'm Engineer, I can just place my turrets on these buttons. And after doing that, it opens a door to allow me to fight a secret boss. But it's going to be a general theme in this run that bosses are not going to be a fair fight. What I'm trying to say is I evaporated these gay lizard lovers, but it was clearly in self-defense. Overall, all Engineer's achievements were pretty simple, but defeating a teleporter boss in 5 seconds actually took a few tries. as well as the zero sum achievement because things were spawning right up into the end of the teleporter. This is probably because the difficulty scaling is really high at this point. But with enough patience, I did end up getting them on the same stage. When I get to the bazaar again, I finally free Artificer, who takes 10 lunar coins to unlock. I've actually had enough lunar coins to unlock her for a while now, but I didn't really want to mess with my Metamorphosis order yet, so she's been just watching the whole time as I go shopping and walk right by her. But I will need to play as Artificer eventually to get her achievements. Also, being an engineer, I am allergic to all forms of movement. So, I also grabbed the Never Back Down achievement for not leaving the teleporter zone for the last 4 stages. This was the game plan anyway, so it wasn't that difficult. In the next blue portal, I grabbed the Sonorous Whispers item, which makes all enemies drop items at this point in the game. Which is insanely overpowered, but it will certainly help when I go to the Void Fields to unlock the final character I can play in this run. Acrid. If you played Risk of Rain 2, you know the Void Fields are a genuine challenge. The entire stage is covered by a deadly fog, while hordes of enemies equipped with very powerful items mercilessly swarm you. This was actually not the case because much like my birthday parties, everyone forgot to show up, and I was having an absolute blast staring into the void, which is actually also like my birthday parties.
You know, I swore things spawned here. I look ridiculous. Oh! Yay!
But finally, after 10 minutes of standing there, I finally unlock Acrid and head toward another Metamorphosis. I actually screw up my stage counting here because I get Commando, and I can't do anything with Commando right now. So I had some very boring stages to get through as I looped to hit Metamorphosis again, and making sure I actually count my stages correctly this time. This is the part of the game we not so lovingly call Scav Hell, where the difficulty scaling is so high nothing really spawns except the hardest enemy in the game, that being Scavengers, which is actually why the achievements for Rex and Commando had to be done pretty early, because there was no way to find a Clay Dunestrider or even an overloading worm at this point in the game. Once at the Artifact portal, I reroll again to get Artificer, who has some unlocks I need to collect, none of which are particularly hard at this point in the game. I do, however, run into a bit of a problem. I waited for 40 minutes in the Artifact Reliquary, and nothing spawned. I even reloaded the game and I got one more key, and then I waited some more, but nothing came. Apparently this is a pretty well-known bug at this stage of the game, where the difficulty scaling in the reliquaries kind of breaks and nothing ever spawns. And when I check the debug terminal, I can see that things have tried to spawn but failed. And since you have to kill things in the artifact reliquary to earn keys to escape, I decided I'd just use the debug menu to give myself some artifact keys.
Run's dead. Or alive, depending on how you look at it. I'm gonna say alive.
I did notice this bug was worse on certain versions of the artifact stage, and things generally had a more difficult time spawning on maps with more uneven floors. But for the rest of the run, if I find myself waiting too long for things to spawn, I'm just giving myself the artifact keys. It doesn't really change much for the run, and it's not like the artifact stages are very difficult anyway, they're just really boring. But after escaping, I immediately blow up a group of scavengers for the Massacre and Orbital Bombardment achievements.
Oh, well that was easy.
And my computer is starting to suffer a little bit. I also make a quick stop at the scrapper to get rid of some of my stuff that kills things automatically. Because after this, I get my first shaped glass, which doubles my damage and halves my health. I do this because I need to kill a teleporter boss in a 1-second burst of damage, so I don't want to accidentally start damaging it, and I need to be able to do a ton of burst damage.
God damn, this is hard when there's multiple.
To do this, I needed to stock up on lunar items. And I also got the Stone Flux and the Light Flux Pauldrons. The Stone Flux Pauldron is in my last video, which you should watch, by the way. But it doubles my health and halves my movement speed, which I tend to have too much of at this point in the game anyway. And the Light Flux Pauldron halves my cooldowns, but also halves my attack speed, which I also have a ton of. Since I have an abundance of common items, there's pretty much no downside to both of these items. Every time I go to the shop, I keep picking up more lunar items. And with 16 times damage and significantly lower cooldowns, I managed to kill the teleporter boss in under a second at the very last stage before I had to metamorphosis again.
There we go. How hard was that?
And in this metamorphosis, I plan to get Acrid and do his character unlocks.
Acrid, yeah!
But Acrid's character unlocks are one of the worst in the game. Not that one though, but the other two.
Okay, well that's one.
Let's start with the first one. This one requires me to finish off 50 enemies at exactly 1 health. This sounds extremely difficult because getting things to exactly 1 health doesn't sound particularly easy, but it's honestly not too bad. Acrid poisons things. Duh. And Acrid's poison by default leaves things at exactly 1 health, so I just have to be really careful to only poison them and not accidentally damage them with anything else. So again, I scrapped a bunch of stuff to make it easier for myself. But I didn't really need to do that because this one can be cheesed because of these stupid explodey pots on some stages, which by default have 1 health. And to my surprise, yeah, they totally count.
It does count, right? Thomas wasn't lying to me. Oh my god, it totally does count. Holy shit.
The other Acrid achievement is not particularly difficult, but it's incredibly tedious. It requires me to poison things 1,000 times, which wouldn't be that bad in a normal playthrough, but not many things spawn at this point in the game, which means it's time to spit at things for a while. Luckily, I got a special stage that spawned a bunch of these Void Devastators, so I had a lot of targets to spam at. But, you know, it still took over an hour. And in this hour of fun, I completed all of Acrid's character unlocks, which means it was time to change up my character again. So after picking up another easy achievement, I metamorphosis back into Loader because there's one more achievement on Loader I need to pick up. To do this, I need to get back to the Artifact Reliquary, but the stages are easier as sometimes the teleporter bosses just straight up forget to spawn.
You appear to have forgot something.
But once at the Artifact Portal, I input the code for the Artifact of Vengeance, because the achievement requires me to kill 3 evil doppelgangers of myself, which are spawned by the Artifact of Vengeance. The Vengeance clones do have all my items, but somehow they have even less brain cells than I do, so all I had to do was chase them around until I could hit 1 punch. Man.
Got him.
And then they imploded.
Yes. That was beautiful.
So this checked off 2 more achievements, and now I could change my character after looping again. But before that, I found a bit of a problem. In the next stage, I did the teleporter boss, but when I tried to leave, I dropped to 1/4 of a frame per second as enemies died extremely fast and spawned even faster. Yeah, I was waiting here for 45 minutes, and eventually had to reload the game. But the next time I did it, it worked normally. I'm sure I'll never see that again. The next few stages worked normally, and I metamorphosis again, this time into Bandit. I can't do a whole lot with Bandit right now, but I will have to return to him at the end of the run. But I can get an achievement that was scaring me when I was first planning this run, which was giving an enemy 20 stacks of Hemorrhage. And the only thing in the entire game that applies Hemorrhage is Bandit's right click. I have to do this by stabbing something 20 times before it dies. Except I actually don't because of the new Noxious Thorns item, which allows killed enemies to transfer debuffs to nearby enemies, which means I can stab a group of enemies a bunch of times, and once they die, they stack all their Hemorrhage on a single enemy. But before doing that, I did have to scrap over 100 items so I didn't kill stuff too fast. But after that, I found a group of scavengers, and did my best British impersonation. God save the Queen and stuff. Say what you want about the new DLC, but a lot of the new stuff has actually saved this run. I'm done with Bandit for now, but we'll see him again later. Now it's time for Huntress. The first achievement I immediately get in the first stage, but my game almost crashes again. I did it! This finally inspired me to turn off golden experience effects so I can actually see what's going on. I did actually manage to escape without reloading, because I figured out what the source of the problem is. The Halcyon Shrine pretty much always spawns in the first stage of a loop, and with the difficulty stage as high as I am, it will endlessly spawn stone golems, and if I kill one, it starts a chain reaction that will just infinitely kill stone golems, which lags the hell out of my game. I can avoid crashing by just avoiding the stone golems altogether, which isn't particularly difficult because they don't move very fast, but I will be doing this from now on. As Huntress, the only other achievement I can get is to complete Rally Point Delta or Scorched Acres without taking damage. Taking no damage isn't all that hard, but I got sulfur pools. Fuck. So I'm gonna have to do that later because I have to swap to Rex again. After switching to Rex, I try to get the green portal using the Halcyon Shrine by feeding the shrine a bunch of money, but if you haven't noticed, I frequently have negative money. So the Halcyon Shrine is definitely not working properly, which is a bit of a problem because the new green portal is the only way to unlock the new character, which is False Sun. But that's a problem for later because I got more things to do this loop. As Rex, the last thing I have to do is charge the teleporter while entirely under half health, which is actually really easy to do now because having shield from personal shield generators actually counts as part of your max health. And I have a few of those now. So all I have to do is just damage myself every so often so my shield doesn't regenerate, which is easy as Rex as I just spam R and right click as both abilities damage me just a little bit. Also, Rex's natural masochism makes it a little easier to die, so I pick up the Worm for Life achievement in the 4th stage after hitting a Shrine of Shaping. The Worm for Life achievement says die 3 times while on fire, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to die from the fire damage, and considering everything in the late game loves arson, that one was actually pretty easy. And then once I get to the 5th stage, I charge the teleporter at half health, which finishes off Rex's achievements so I can switch to Railgunner. As Railgunner, one achievement is really easy, check this shit out. But the other two require a bit more skill, which I am lacking because I don't really play this character. The first one needs me to hit 30 weak points in a row, which isn't impossible, but will certainly take a lot of patience, and good aim. The next one needs me to kill 3 enemies with a supercharged shot while airborne, which I found out I was actually lacking the damage for. So my solution was found while getting the Artifact of Swarms, where I sat by a delicate watch printer for a while, which is a 20% damage boost for each watch. And after that, I grabbed even more shaped glass, putting me at a damage multiplier of 64. To be extra careful, I went on another scrapping spree so I don't accidentally kill anything without shooting them. With this preparation, I got the first one on stage 91 by being so far away I can take my sweet time lining up my shots. Yay! And then I got the second one while finishing the Artifact of Command pretty much by pure luck. Yeah! At this point, most of the character-specific achievements are done, so I have to fish for specific characters out of Metamorphosis, which means I have to do a lot of planning ahead and can't just get the Artifact of Metamorphosis every time. So this time I got the Artifact of Spite instead. I skipped this Metamorphosis because I needed to get Huntress, to actually get the correct stage to not take damage on. Yes. This time it works because I get Rally Point Delta. And with the power of abundant shaped glass, I managed to kill everything without taking damage, finishing up Huntress's achievements. Yay! After this, I pick up the Artifact of Honor and loop one more time to get the final Metamorphosis required for this run. Once I switch to Bandit, I am done with Metamorphosis, and no longer have to count my stages. But it doesn't get easier, as this part of the run starts to break things a little bit. The green portal path, which allows you to challenge the new boss of the Seekers of the Storm DLC, is accessed by completing the Halcyon Shrine event. And now if you remember, the Halcyon Shrine event just straight up doesn't work because of the ability to get negative money. You might think that would make this path impossible, but the green portal also spawns after beating Aurelionite, which is a secret boss that can be accessed through the Lunar Seer in the Bazaar Between Time. So all I had to do was kill Aurelionite and get the green portal that way. Seems easy enough, right? Wrong. Apparently, negative money wasn't the only possible negative number here. Aurelionite's negative health made him entirely indestructible, no matter how many bullets I pump into him. The infinitely spawning Stone Titans made Bandit's second achievement easy, but I was effectively stuck here as there would be no escape portal while Aurelionite still lives. But while I was actually stuck, the run didn't theoretically end here, because of an item called the Trophy Hunter's Tricorn. This equipment can one-shot any boss monster with a unique boss drop, which works on Aurelionite even though he's immune to my mortal weapons. I couldn't actually leave to go get one, so I had to use the command line to cheat one in. But it totally would have been possible to get one if I knew beforehand that Aurelionite was going to be invincible. And I actually ended up picking one up 2 stages later, which was a little late, but I ended up carrying it around for the rest of the game for safety. After Aurelionite, I grabbed the Golden Seed and traveled towards the Prime Meridian, where I would fight the False Sun boss and finally unlock him as a playable character. I traveled to the top where I'd finally face him in combat, and... oh, he's gone. Wait, he's actually gone. Usually False Sun has more phases, but the difficulty scaling was preventing him from showing up after that, which is probably a good thing for him because I shot him literally once for an ungodly amount of damage. And unlike Aurelionite, there was no way around this, so I had to use the command line to force him to come back so I could finish what I started. This did properly end the fight and allow me to leave, and it actually gave me all the proper unlocks too, including taking over his business selling propane and propane accessories. As a side note, False Sun has unlocks, but they aren't Steam achievements for some reason, so I'm ignoring them. Also, I did get the Bandit skin for beating False Sun, but that isn't an achievement either. This is the final stretch of the run. I just have to unlock all the artifacts I have left, while dying a few more times with the Shrine of Shaping to put me at 20 deaths. And only then will I be able to fight the final boss. These final stages mostly involve me standing still because nothing really spawns anymore, which means I'm giving myself a lot of artifact keys to unlock these artifacts. These artifacts are so boring normally. I have over 250 hours in this game, and this is my first time unlocking some of these. But hey, an unlock's an unlock. The calmness at the end of the run really made me reflect on my life choices and question my morals. I had nearly eradicated all life on this planet. For what? A larger number I can flex at the end of this? Am I a bad person? But before I really start reflecting, I drown my sorrows in just a little bit more shaved glass. I do think I was actually going insane at the end of this run, as Aurelionite was the only thing I could talk to while waiting for the teleporter events to finish.
Hey, you had infinite health. How'd that feel? Pretty awesome. I haven't done this one either.
Finally, I get all the artifacts, and I even get a little bonus artifact of Delusion as a treat, but it isn't an achievement. Now it's finally time to face the final boss, over 16 hours after starting the run. I set the teleporter to align to the moon, and I head to the final part of this run. But first, I do another scrapper trip, making sure Mithrix won't be able to steal any useful items. My items essentially allow me to fly, so I head straight for the arena in the sky. There are 2 ways this could go. I either one-shot Mithrix immediately, or he one-shots me immediately. Oh, okay. I'm ready. Let's see if this works. It does! The first 3 phases, as expected, were easy. I literally shot him for 22 million damage. But everything will be decided in the final phase of the fight, where he steals all the items I collected over the course of my entire run. This includes the 9-shaped glass I've been accumulating. And now that they're stolen by Mithrix, it multiplies his damage by 500, but it ends up putting him at a 500th of his normal health. Without any of my items, it's either him or me, and I have a final bandit achievement to complete. Yes! With Mithrix gone, the moon falls apart and I make my way to the escape ship. I've gained so much in this run, but was the cost really worth it? All the destruction I caused? Yeah. And just like that, I completed as many achievements as possible in a single run of Risk of Rain 2. As for the end of the run, I could either unlock Void Fiend or Captain, but killing Voidling glitches out the game and traps me in the Void forever, which is a pretty good reason to unlock Captain instead. Special thanks to Thomas for helping me plan this run and the resources on the Risk of Rain 2 wiki, as well as the people that made the mods I used in this run, which are linked in the description and you should try them. We've been working on this for over a month, so if you liked it, please like, share, and subscribe, so I know you want me to keep making videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!